Hello there, and welcome back to Betamax Blocker. Can you believe it's been 2 years since I started making videos for you? Videos on the Beach Boys, on movies, on all sorts of old home media odds and ends I've found laying around. But it's been very fun and very rewarding. And each week I look forward to seeing your comments and having some interesting conversations about all these different things that I've found to talk about. And this has been one of the most fulfilling ventures of my life. And I want to say thank you for liking, for subscribing, for watching, and for sharing my love of all these classic things. I look forward to making many more videos for you in the future. So I thought today, to celebrate my 2nd anniversary on YouTube, let's look at some of the things I'm either going to make videos about or have attempted to and had to stop or give up on, but I hope to revisit later. So, some coming attractions for you. With Oscar season on the way, we'll have to take a look at all the Best Picture winners of the 1930s. Here's the 1934 winner, It Happened One Night. Last year I did a video on the winners from the 1920s. It wasn't a very popular video, but I really liked doing it and had some interesting discussion with that. So I'm looking forward to talking about All Quiet on the Western Front and Gone with the Wind and Cimarron and all sorts of other classics there. That'll be a lot of fun. With St. Patrick's Day on the near horizon, we'll have to take a look at some Irish films. Here's one of the most famous, John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara in John Ford's 1952 classic, The Quiet Man. Great film. If you haven't seen it yet, go look it up. I think you'll really enjoy it. I don't know if it's my favorite John Wayne film, but it's definitely pretty close. But we'll look at that and some other Irish classics here. And we also have a review of my least favorite Beach Boys album. At the end of March, we'll talk about Live in Chicago, 1965. One of the few times that I can honestly say I can't get into a Beach Boys album. So those are all things on the near horizon, but what are some things that I've attempted to make but ultimately had to scrap or give up on? One I know I've talked about before is 1998's Endless Harmony soundtrack. Endless Harmony soundtrack is kind of a collection of rarities and oddities and different things in the Beach Boys archives released to coincide with the Endless Harmony documentary film. The problem with doing a video on this is, as you can see, I have 2 different versions of it. It was released once in 1998 and again in 2000, but some of the tracks were switched out. Different mixes, or in one case a different radio promo is used. And this makes it very difficult to kind of review this, because not only do you have to compare it to releases that came before or after, but also to one another. And to further compound the problem, this isn't an original 1998 first pressing, this is like a 2nd or 3rd pressing, so some of the tracks are the same as the original release, while others are the same as the reissue. And it gets pretty confusing, and every time I've sat down to make a video on this and write up my notes and things like that, I always find myself getting sucked into some kind of weird Beach Boys rabbit hole with, subtle differences between different recordings or mixes of songs. And ultimately, I've never been able to reach a point where I can say, yes, I can make a good video on that. Someday, I'll have an Endless Harmony soundtrack video for you, I promise, but I don't know when that's going to be. On a similar note, but one that's not entirely my fault, I've often talked about making a video on 1983's Beach Boys Rarities. Rarities, one of their biggest failures and a very bizarre album, a collection of, at the time, all unreleased songs. I need one more object to be able to do a proper in-depth review of this album. The problem is, when I ordered that object from Amazon, I opened it up and it was the wrong thing inside, so I had to send it back. So now I'm back at square one. But there's a lot to say about this album, and it's such a weird footnote in the Beach Boys' history that it needs to be talked about. Once I can find either the object I need or something very similar, then I can make my rarities video. I think that's going to be a really fun one. I've always wanted to talk more about Smile, especially because Smile not only has the 2 LP set, but it also has the giant box set with multiple discs, including one that's all just Good Vibration sessions. And also, there's one that's all Heroes and Villains sessions, in addition to there being a small 2 CD set. So there's a lot to talk about with Smile, but honestly I've never really figured out precisely what I want to say about it. I could go through the big box set and point out tracks that were available elsewhere, but that is kind of tedious, I think, and there's not really a lot to say in that department. I thought about doing a review of it, but Smile does have fans who are absolutely obsessed, and if you say the wrong thing, I might very well get canceled from YouTube and or murdered, so I don't want that to happen either. I don't know. If you have any ideas on what I should say about Beach Boys Smile, please comment them below. But I'd love to do a video talking about this album that's so unique and so artistic that there's really nothing else quite like it. I promised watcher Mike Hillman-Huber that someday I would do a video on King Kong. I'm leaning towards doing one about the films that influenced King Kong, films like Chang, The Lost World, and so on. I don't know, I haven't quite got the handle on that yet. I love King Kong, it was the first film I ever saw. I've seen it in theaters. Very great movie, absolute classic, but I don't quite know what I could bring to the table, what I could talk about that hasn't been said by other people far more qualified than me. Something I'd like to do here on Betamax Blocker are book reviews. I've only done one. I did Ian Fleming's The Diamond Smugglers. Ian Fleming, of course, the man who created James Bond. There are so many great videos on reading his books, analyzing them, ranking them, and so on. I did The Diamond Smugglers as a two-parter because I thought, no one else really seemed to cover this book. It's kind of a footnote. I like my Diamond Smugglers videos, but they didn't catch on. It's just not a popular enough book. But one day I'd like to do Ian Fleming's other kind of non-fiction, non-James Bond book called Thrilling Cities, where he travels around the world and writes all about these different places he's visited. Some of them I've been to, like Honolulu, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. Others, like Zurich, Switzerland, are as far away from me as you can get. But it is a fun read. I mean, some of the things Ian Fleming writes you would never say today. But I had a great time reviewing The Diamond Smugglers, and someday I'd like to come back to this book and share some of the bizarre and insightful things that he wrote. Fleming was a very well-traveled man. He knew all about cultures around the world, so he can provide insight into some of these, even by today's standards, historical cultures. But he also, of course, phrases things with a certain lack of delicacy. His views on, finding entertainment for the night in Germany, or talking about which people should be allowed to wear bathing suits in Hawaii and which ones shouldn't, all that kind of stuff, certainly has not aged the book especially well. But it'd be fun to come back to and revisit this. I'd like to do more book stuff. Let me know in the comments if you think you'd like to see some book reviews, because I have tons of books that I'd love to talk about. But, I want you to see videos that you're interested in. Something I'm going to do one day, I know I've talked about before, the TCM Greatest Classic Films collection. These started coming out when I was a teenager, and I bought tons of them. I don't have a complete set, but I am pretty close. And a handy way to get 4 films usually on 2 discs, but not all the time, and that'd be a subject for the video. But these are really fun sets. Themed collections. If you watch my videos on like Memorial Day war movies and things, we talk more about these. But some fun titles here, a lot of classics, really nice packaging, put them all together on a shelf and stuff. They have really cool kind of stylized spines. Someday I'll get to that, and someday we'll do another Three Stooges video, as there's all kinds of weird Stooges curios that are absolutely worth talking about. Here's the big box of Nyuks, which has some great stuff in it. There's also some individual Three Stooges movie appearances and the later Curly Joe era films that I kind of need to talk about a little bit more. So we'll definitely come back to the Stooges at some point. Not sure when that'll be, but I think it'll be really fun. Love the Stooges. And speaking of which, I have a Marx Brothers video in the works for you. Someday I'd like to sit and rank all of the Marx Brothers films. Because next to the Stooges and Laurel and Hardy, they are my favorites. And movies like Duck Soup and A Night at the Opera are some of the most watched movies in my life. I've seen Duck Soup probably over 50 times. Such a great film. And there's a lot you can say about the Marx Brothers. You can even go out and shoot an elephant in your pajamas. How he got in your pajamas, I don't know. And lastly, I had so much fun making those Shining Time Station videos, and I've gotten a lot of really interesting comments on them that someday I want to make another rare and unusual VHS video and talk about the Thomas tapes that didn't make the transition from VHS to DVD. So ones that are maybe not rarities, maybe not commanding super high prices, but releases like Thomas Meets the Queen have kind of fallen in the cracks a little bit. I'd like to talk more about those. So that's some of what's coming up in the near future. Again, please comment any ideas you have below. Love to make the content you want to see. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Until next time, my friends, have a good week.